You hear a lot about statistics from the first and second round stats, but where you really make your money when you're creating these brackets is how you fare in the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, and onwards. And so in this video, we're going to talk about some key stats that will help you build a bracket, not just winning the first weekend, but the rest of your bracket and the rest of the tournament as well. We're going to be looking at one seed performance, as that's going to be a very popular pick for people advancing to the Sweet 16 and beyond. Other seeding statistics that will be pertinent when creating your bracket, and then underdog history in these rounds traditionally through the last 10, 20 years here. As always, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, as we're going to have a lot of March Madness content continuing coming out throughout the rest of the tournament, and already a lot posted. So get your fix and help build a winning bracket. See, we're going to talk about the one seeds, as I alluded to earlier. First, you're looking at Sweet 16 here. They make it to the Sweet 16 often, and even when they get there, they're winning at a dominant rate. At 86% of the time, they're winning that Sweet 16 matchup. But the caveat is they have to make it there. Rarely do all four number one seeds make it to the Sweet 16, but when they do make it there, they're doing well. And again, you're doing very well at an 86% clip in the Sweet 16, but the Elite Eight, you see a much different story. They're still winning the game over half the time, but it's not a given like you think it would be. Just over half the time are the one seeds winning in the Elite Eight. And on average, in this Elite Eight stage, you're only getting two one seeds advance there. So if you have a Final Four that has four one seeds, odds are two of those aren't going to be there. And even three one seeds in your Final Four moving past the Elite Eight is a little overzealous here. Knowing all that, Slee, well, what one seeds do you have to add here? I got a feeling UConn's going to be a pretty popular pick to make it past both these stages. But what do you think about the other ones?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you can't even overlook UConn in this stage of things because I mean I do think they have a good shot to make it to the Sweet 16. They are the best team in college basketball, but if they are in the Sweet 16 matchup, like they could be playing Auburn, who could have easily been a one seed,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
won the SEC conference tournament, and they're literally slated in the exact same Ken Palm spot as UConn was last year. There's your
Yeah.
top four teams, and then at number five, there's Auburn, who's a four seed. So just kind of give me a little bit of deja vu there. I do think UConn's the best team in college basketball. So, I mean, I'm going to pick them to win a lot of games, but I just, I'm a little worried that everybody's just going to overlook UConn and the
A
fact that they
tough
could
region.
lose.
Very
Because,
tough.
yeah, the matchups they have to play are the worst. Like, I can't
Mm-hmm.
believe how bad they made that region for UConn. They
Yeah.
absolutely loaded it. But yeah, I do think UConn should make it there and win the game, but they're gonna have the toughest matchup. Uh, and yeah, Auburn could beat anyone in the country, so
Mm-hmm.
that one's that one's gonna be tough. I do think Houston's lined up pretty well to make a run to the Sweet 16 and then even advance past that. Um, I think Houston's probably in the weakest region in the South. Like I think Marquette's my weakest two seed. Kentucky does have the ability to beat anyone, but they haven't done it for like 4 or 5 games in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if they will even end up getting the shot to play Houston. Like maybe if they were like a four seed and Houston had to play them in the second or third round. But I think Kentucky's gonna blow it before then even.
Yeah.
You never know. But
Young
I
team.
just
It's kind of what they do in the tournament. They either go really far or they upset you pretty quickly.
yeah, like I don't think Wisconsin, Nebraska, A&M, or Duke are really gonna give Houston that great of a game.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think like Auburn could. Um, Even like San Diego State, just put two teams against each other who are like the same play style and just
Yeah.
have them battle it out.
That'd be a fun
So yeah,
one.
I think Houston just matchup wise, it fits out pretty well. And then same deal with Purdue. Like, oh, I don't even know. Some of these regions, like just after you look at the East region, you look at these other regions, they all kind of look weak in my mind. But Purdue's another one that should hypothetically have a nice road there. Um, it could be interesting if they match up with Kansas in that like Sweet 16 game, and then you get a Dickinson versus Edie matchup.
Yeah.
Like Edie's still bigger, but um, like that's one thing I'll mention. Like in the Big Ten tournament when they played Wisconsin, like Stephen Crowell massive 7-footer on Wisconsin. Like just when you could match up with Edie a little bit size wise, like that's when he's not used to it. He doesn't get all his easy looks. And
To
I mean
even
they
the
beat him.
playing field just a little bit is so significant for him. He's used to
Right.
just having an absolute mismatch every
And of
time he
course,
steps on the
yeah,
court.
exactly. And I feel like so yeah, I think I don't know. I don't know how intentional a lot of this was, but they put Creighton in that region too. Like
Yeah,
Creighton versus Purdue is a great matchup. Like Ryan Kalkbrenner versus Edie, like basically the two biggest skilled basketball players in college basketball against each other. Like I don't know. I just feel like a lot of this was very intentional seeding. Um, I don't think Kansas is a very good team, but I do think they match up really well with Purdue. Uh,
interesting.
and then Creighton, I think, is a good team and they match up well. So Purdue should make it to that Sweet 16 game, but I think Kansas would give them the most trouble in that game. And then the last region that we didn't talk about yet, the West region, with North Carolina, and I think this, if you're gonna have a one seed go out early, it'll probably be North Carolina. I'm not I'm not sold on who's gonna beat them yet, but it could be Mississippi State or Michigan State in the second round,
Hmm.
and that's why I'm most worried about North Carolina making that far because outside of their very first game, they're gonna have tough matchups then on. Um, and a lot of these other teams will, but I think North Carolina got one of the tougher draws. Uh, but who knows? Even if they play in that Sweet 16 game, like when Bama doesn't show up, like that could be
Yep.
an easy matchup, or Bama could win by 30. Uh,
Because that's just how good
you
their
never
offense
you,
is.
you
Yeah.
never know what version of Bama you're gonna get. But but yeah, I think North Carolina is gonna have a lot of trouble. Like between Michigan State or Mississippi State, and then if they do have to play Bama in that Sweet 16 game, um, yeah, like I think that could be a coin flip too.
And
So
we
yeah, I think
talked.
North Carolina is the one that I would take to lose,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't even overlook say Purdue. Um, I don't think they're going to lose in the first round or anything like last year or even the second, but I think when they hit the Sweet 16, they got a real shot
I
to
think
drop
so
that
too.
game.
I think so too.
Yeah, I think your safest one, if you want to pencil one into like the Elite Eight, probably Houston, just based off of
I
matchups
like that.
alone.
And just they're so athletic. If you can't match that, it's so tough to beat them with how good their defense is too. And like we mentioned in another video, that great athletic defense produces so much for their offense. But here we're talking about two seeds now, Sliwa. Two seeds when they do face the number three seed in the Sweet 16. I like to think they're doing pretty well with the 30-17 record of all time. It's pretty convincing for me. And then when they make it past that round and go to the Elite Eight, once again they're holding their own against the number one seed, batting 500 against them, and then even lately 7-4 recently against the one seed when they face off in the Elite Eight. So these two seeds they seem to have a pretty relative edge over the three seed, and they face the one seed, are head to head even with them all time. What two seeds do you like here to make it Sweet 16? Potentially, you have a little bit, let's say, a chalkier region in your bracket where you have the two seed upsetting the one seed in the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I mean, I have that at the moment, at least, exactly happening in the West region. I
Hmm.
have, I think I'm still going to adjust and maybe have North Carolina dropping out earlier. I'm not sure yet, but I have Arizona winning the West region.
Yep.
I mean, that's just perfect for them too. They got in the West still. I thought they should have been the one seed. I mean, their earlier conference tournament loss definitely dropped them out and
Hmm.
penciled in North Carolina, but I think Arizona's the better team. I think they're better than North Carolina in that region. I think that one's pretty easy for me. Um,
Little Caleb Love revenge game there too.
yeah, I mean, yeah,
Not really a revenge game.
that'd be a really good matchup to be honest.
Hmm.
I think Iowa State too. Iowa State is one of my more favorite two seeds. They're just, I mean, they're in that brutal East region that we talked about. Uh, so yeah, I just don't think they're gonna play UConn to be honest in that game.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah,
I don't
it
think
gets
so
really
either.
tough. I think my favorite is Arizona though. I think my favorite's Arizona for sure as a two seed. Marquette, I'm really low on. We talked about them before, but
Mhm.
I don't think Marquette's gonna make it that far. And then put this last with Tennessee, who I thought was a great basketball team. I don't really
Yes.
think that anymore. Uh,
It's hard when your best player is scoring 40 and you're still losing games.
That's the issue.
That's
It's
tough.
just the way they lose. Like it'd be one thing if they were in the game, but the last two games have taken them and they lost, and like they go down 15 early and they don't even have a chance. So they don't really like if they go down in the tournament, I don't really think they're gonna come back and win the game. And
Uh,
how many times are you gonna grab an early lead 6 games in a row? Like it's not very likely.
so
Um,
Arizona, our favorite. Not so it sounds like
Arizona's
what
my
you're saying.
favorite.
Not a
I
strong
think
2 seed showing this year, but Arizona, I like them too. So I'm glad to hear you say that. But it seems like by the way you're talking, you think they're head and shoulders above the other 2 seeds.
yeah, that's how I view it. Or Iowa State, I would say, is pretty close with Arizona. I think either of them could have gotten a 1 seed. My issue
Not
with Iowa
a
State's just the region.
not
Um,
they're with the region and their preseason outside of top 25 AP poll makes me out on Iowa State.
yeah, no, I
Can't do it.
understand that.
Can't do it. The
Well,
record, the performance speaks for itself.
like Iowa State just grabbed the #1 rated defense on Ken Palm.
They
Like,
gotta do. Purdue was in 1 seed last year. 1 seeds never lose in the first round. They do.
yeah,
Just it happens. I'm gonna go with the historical stuff. You guys will hear more about that in another video. But Iowa State, I'm fading this year. We'll move on. We'll move on. Don't forget about the underdogs when you're considering the Sweet 16 and Elite Eight matchups here. For the 12 seeds, you can disregard them. They can win a couple games in over that first weekend, but their time is up in the Sweet 16. They are winless when they face the 1 seed in that spot, and they're only 2-20 overall. So if you got a 12-1 matchup, you probably weren't considering it anyways, but it's a tough spot for the 12 seed to move on in that spot. When you do look at these seats number 7 through 11, this is where you start to see some separation for you versus the other people in your bracket. Because one of these teams makes it to the Final Four just about every year. There's going to be a team that is higher seeded that makes it to the Sweet 16, makes it to the Elite Eight, and even makes it past the Elite Eight into the Final Four. I think more often than not, it's actually the 11th seed. But look at the 7, 8, 10, 11 specifically, because you look at the 9 seed, only one 9 seed, Wichita State, has ever made to the Final Four. And the 6 seed there hasn't even made it past the Elite Eight to the Final Four since 1992. So those seeds, I think you can push your side as well. I'd be penciling in a 7 or 11 seed to make that Final Four run if you want to start differentiating yourself. Even taking a step back from Final Four and looking at Sweet 16 appearances, there have been 12 tournaments, 13 tournaments since 2011. And in more times than there are the tournament, a number 11 seed makes the Sweet 16. So that is just about as close of a lock as it gets in terms of recent trends. And we talked about it. You're getting a lot of conference winners that have a lot of momentum at the 11th spot right now. So it wouldn't be very surprising to see an 11 seed. What I think was also interesting here, you're looking at seeds to make the Sweet 16, the 15 seed is more likely historically than the 12 or 13 or 14 seed to make the Sweet 16. So that's a lot of stats thrown at you there, Sliwa. But what are you thinking here for a double-digit seed that you think could get pushed a little bit further in the tournament than some people think?
yeah. I mean, this season more than ever. I mean, we have the NIL now. I think the playing field's so evened out compared to years in the past. I think
Mm-hmm.
it kind of falls off when you get to those 15, 16 seeds. I mean, you do have some 15 seeds on here making the Sweet 16 still though. But yeah, like I'm looking at these matchups and there's so many like 13, 14, 12 seeds that I'm looking at and I'm like, oh, these guys are like actually good. McNeese's one we talked about and they're very popular right now, but like McNeese's lost 3 games on the season. I feel like they're a little bit similar to how I thought about FAU last year. Like, yes, they might not have the greatest wins and the greatest resume, but if you just win like all your games, like what can you have against them? Like, they
Mm-hmm.
finding ways to win a basketball game is more important than like shooting lights out from three. Same can be said for South Carolina, who we just talked about. Well, lost 7 games in SEC. Like, yes, they don't pass all these advanced stat metrics, but when you just got to win a game in March in advance, like that to me is more important. Um, so yeah, I'm sticking with lower seeds that win a lot of games. So McNeese's one of them. I haven't looked a ton at this one even, but I could even see Kansas being on the upset radar against Samford.
Mhm.
Samford went 29-5 this year. So like a 13 seed that's 29-5. Like I don't really remember seeing much of that in the past.
No, it doesn't
Uh,
sound like it.
yeah, and their point guard was a top 100 recruit. Started at Utah, so like they have like these teams in these lower seeds. They like if you check their rosters, they have a lot of guys who have played at other Power Five schools. Like they're not just going to be starstruck when they get on the court.
Yeah.
Um, like McNeese, their point guard, played at TCU, for example. So like he played in the Big 12. Not going to be afraid of Gonzaga in that matchup. Like I just think it's loaded. But one of my favorites. I mean, we already talked about New Mexico. I think New Mexico's got a really good shot to make it to the Sweet 16 if they could beat Clemson and Baylor. I think those are two great matchups for them. Baylor's another team we've talked about who doesn't play great defense. So if you're playing well offensively that night, you're hitting your open shots. Like you could beat Baylor,
Oh yeah.
and they have the shooters to do it. So yeah, I think New Mexico is my one I feel the most confident about. Um, but even like Grand Canyon University, they played St.
I
Mary's
like
in the first
Grand
round.
Canyon. I
Grand
like
Canyon
Grand
lost
Canyon.
four games this year. Like it's just unreal. Like how good they are. They have their forward on their team started at Kansas, and he's
Mhm.
averaging 2.2 points under 20 a game. Um, so like there's so many good players on these mid-major teams. Um, Granted, because you could transfer and not have to sit out a year now. Like James Madison's got a bunch of guys from Boston College. They only lost 3 games, I think. Like these 12, 13, 14 seeds, like if you look at their resumes, like they've played a lot better basketball than teams ahead of them for the most part.
So do you think that lends itself to a little bit more upsets from these higher seeds this year? Because I think
I think
it's a
so.
double-edged sword in the way that these good teams can get guys from the transfer portal and not skip a beat, kind of like UConn this year too. Or,
Yeah,
a lot of these good teams are
you
able to
get
bolster their
stronger.
roster.
Um, I think this year, from what I've seen from the bracket, I think there's going to be more upsets than ever. Even maybe not a 1 seed losing in the first round, maybe not a 2 seed losing in the first round, but between like your 14 seeds through your 10 seeds, I think they could win a ton of games this year. Like I think it might be the closest to these teams going 500 like ever.
I'm hoping that's the case. Just for it makes for a fun March. I think it'll make for some very interesting
Yeah,
brackets
I
too.
don't know. Almost, yeah. My whole point in that is don't be afraid to pick the lower seed because most of these teams have only lost like 5 games, like if not
Mhm.
less. Like when you lose that many games on a like I don't know, you just play basketball the right way. You start to lose your lead. You're gonna call a timeout. You're gonna like you just tighten up a lot quicker. You're not gonna let something slip. Um, I don't know. I just feel like we saw that with FAU last year
It's
being
the
like an
mental
eight
side of
seed.
basketball. You can't quantify it, but there, like you obviously know as a college athlete, there's something about this having that mental toughness that comes with winning close games and grinding it out throughout the whole season that equips you for tough games in March because they're going to happen.
Right. Like I mean, there's other 14 seeds too. For example, like Oakland lost 11 games. Like Akron lost 10 games. But like Morehead State, I think as a 14 seed against Illinois, they went 26-8. Um, I think they have a really good shot to beat Illinois and knock them off. Illinois doesn't play any defense.
Mhm.
They've also shown a likeness to get down early.
Yeah.
Like you're not always going to be able to grab the lead in the second half. So yeah, I just think the talent's way better on these mid majors. Like we saw it last year. I mean, last year felt crazy just as every year does.
Hmm.
But I mean, our Final Four was like an 8 seed, two 5 seeds, and a 1 seed, or a
Yeah.
four.
4 seed. Yeah.
Like two fives, a four, and an eight. Like, I mean, I wouldn't. Not that I think that's going to happen again, but just think about how weird last year's bracket was. It was like
Hmm.
the first one post NIL. Like now we're on year 2. Like I know, like a lot of these trends are true, absolutely, but I just think it's going to be even more magnified.
Yeah, we could be entering a new era with the transfer portal and NIL, where a lot of these historical trends start to get bucked a little bit. You never know. Like you said, the talent field and the competition is really even now, a lot more level playing field, and we'll see how that has an effect in March. And hopefully it's for the best. We don't see, as long as we don't get chalk, that makes it much more interesting.
Yeah. I mean, you could argue both ways too. Like, I don't think anybody was super like getting those upsets are sweet, but then when your final four is
That's true.
SDSU
That's
versus
true. That's a good
FAU
point.
and then UConn versus Miami, it felt like the tournament was over in the final four. Everybody
Yeah,
kind of knew UConn was going to win it.
it's very
So,
true.
yeah. I mean, you almost root for the upsets early on and then hope some of these better teams
Yeah, you
pull it
hope
out in the second round.
it's exactly. You want to get, these double-digit seeds in the Sweet 16, but after that, you want to stick with
Yeah,
the
or maybe like one Cinderella, but yeah, I
Mhm.
can't say there's a lot of people excited to watch Atlantic versus San Diego State.
That's
And
true.
that was a
It
game
was
that
a
was
great
won on a
game.
buzzer
Great
beater.
game, though.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think people remember that one as much as they probably should, even
Yeah.
just because it was those two teams.
We'll have to see. Yeah, it's a good point. We'll have to see what happens this year. I'm excited. But that's the video, guys. I hope that helps you construct your bracket a little bit further beyond the first weekend of college basketball. Again, subscribe to the channel so you can get more of these stats throughout the tournament and some of our best plays throughout the weeks.